Thank you for being here. I'm happy. As I said, I was discussing with James, and why not to take this opportunity in the context of RST to speak live personally regarding you and your activity and RST. You are one of the 5 RST trainers.
Yes.
Besides Paul, Griffin, Michael, and James Buck.
Yes.
So, what is RST for you? How?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me go back many years. I started as a developer. In the projects I did, everything we released broke the next day. So we had to fix all things. And I was talking to my colleagues like, how can we up our game? That's how I ended up in testing. And one of the first training I did were old-fashioned design techniques, and I was like, oh wow, this is so cool. But I didn't know how to use it, so I learned over time. And then we have this thing called TMAP in the Netherlands. I'm not sure if you heard of it. It's like ISTQB. It's very formal, step by step. And I learned that, and I was like, okay, I'm not sure how to use it, but it's okay. Then I did ISTQB because my boss wanted it, and then I wanted to train people because I saw people were struggling with testing. So I became an ISTQB instructor. And after done 10 of those courses, I was in my car driving home, back home, and I was thinking like, what am I teaching these people?
Yeah.
How is this helping them? Instead of, I'm not saying there's no value in there, because there are some terms in there, and you learn about the jargon, and so there is some value, but I didn't learn people how to do actual testing, because we weren't even using software in that class. We were just doing written exercises, and I got frustrated because I was back then also coaching some people, some joiners of our company, new in testing, and while talking to them, they said, okay, I have this design technique. How do I choose which design technique I'm using? And I said, well, just try them both and see what works best.
Yeah.
And then learn from that experience. And I said, okay, yeah, cool. And I was like, why aren't we teaching these kinds of skills to people? Critical thinking, talking about testing, asking good questions. So I started Googling, and then I found this thing called rapid software testing, and I was like, oh, okay, let's dive into it. And at first, because all the material is online, and I was reading through it, and I couldn't really understand it. So I went to my boss back then, who is Martin Pol, who is the original author of TMAP. So he was in the field of, well, standardized factory-based testing. And I asked him, like, have you heard of rapid software testing? He said, yeah. Our clients do not need that. And and that triggered me, like, okay, if he is so against it, I'm curious why. So I started diving in, and I sent some emails to James with questions, and I got answers back, and I was like, oh wow. And then at one point I ran into Michael Bulletin at, I think it was Eurostar 2006 or 2007, somewhere there. And I saw his keynote, and I was like, wow, this is amazing stuff. I want to learn this. And a couple of years later, we started this group called DUTE, Dutch Exploratory Workshop on Testing, inspired by the peer workshops people were doing, because Michael was basically, and James online were basically challenging us, like, okay, if you want to do something about it, start this movement. So we started this movement. I hired Michael to train my people in a bank. I was team lead in the bank, so I flew in Michael. He did 2 RST classes with 70 people in 2 groups, and I asked him this question, like, but how on earth can people fully understand you? Because we're Dutch, and you're speaking English, and this is hard. So we need a Dutch teacher. And he said, yeah, but we don't know anybody who could do it. And I said, well, maybe I can do it. And Michael didn't really react to it. And I started studying it and being in contact with these people. I started public speaking. And at one point, James asked me, like, would you like to become an RST teacher? And I was like, yes! So that's how it started. And what it means to me is I took RST, I think, 4 times as a participant, learning all the stuff because we were organizing these trainings. So I was facilitating the training and being in the room. And I think I co-trained it 4 times before I could do it on my own.
With James, Michael?
Both. With both. Twice with James, twice with Michael. So I took it 8 times and I wrote an article about it, how I learned to become an RST teacher. And each time I learned something new. So for me, RST is not about I'm going to tell you how testing works. It's challenging people to come up with what is your perception of the world, what is your paradigm on testing. We present how we define testing, but you don't have to use that. We want you to
actually
think it through.
James and Michael said, okay, we present this to you, but then make it yours, modified, do it as you want.
Exactly, and that's what I love about it. In the ISTQB world, it's like, this is what we think it should be, and we give you...
It's sacrosanct, and that's it.
Yeah, and in RST, we challenge people to change it. Like, okay, take it and change it, make it yours. And what we do is we don't train like predefined methods or step models, do this, do this, do this, but we learn you to solve problems. And it's an experiential training, so before we tell you how we think you could solve a problem, we give you an exercise where there are many traps, so you'll learn from the experience.
And James says it very clear, hey, we were in those traps. It was frustrating for us.
Yeah. I've stepped in every single one of them. And if I didn't, then James or Michael would have come with an exercise slightly different to make me feel that trap.
And how is this help in this rapid thing? I mean, how come this is rapid?
Well, for me, rapid testing means not doing it faster, but in the end, it is faster because we're eliminating waste. And I did a talk at Agile Testing Days in USA last week where I talked about how not to waste time. Because there are so many wasteful activities in software testing. One of them is testing too much. So how do you know what to test? And I see people, like Rob said in his keynote we just seen, like testing tickets. There's no such thing as testing a ticket. You have to test the system. So what's important? Talk to people about what's important. Talk to people about how the software actually works. So it's not requirements. Of course they are important in a way, but I never look at requirements. I like to play with the system first, fully understand how I perceive. I model my own stuff so I can understand what the system does, and then go in and find important problems.
I like to say that its requirements, perfect. See them as with respectful suspicion.
Yeah, exactly. And I did a tutorial on risk analysis yesterday, and one of the students there said, yeah, but one of the most important sources for me is requirements. And I said, sure, because that is a model of how the software could work. But there's so much more than requirements. And she looked at me like, oh, can you name a few? And it's not her question that worries me. It's not her, but it's like, didn't nobody help you see that you can talk to people, you can compare products, or there's so many more oracles than only these freaking requirements.
And when you said this, you know that James Christie, he investigated a lot the UK Postal Office scandal, and the judge gave some verdicts. And what was interesting in what James Christie investigated was that the judge didn't look at the requirements and the ideal things. The judge put the sentence on the facts, on the reality of the things, as Robert said initially. And what it was like, okay, when we'll exit our playground of IT with the real world, how we will face it, because it's about lives. In that scandal, I understood people committed suicide. How we were testing, we should react.
Yeah.
And it was like a cold shower for me. And what is difficult for you when you teach the RST?
One thing that makes it not difficult but exhausting for me is I'm a very passionate, enthusiastic, energetic person, and teaching a 3-day class, especially with live people in the room, I'm exhausted because I'm just running around class and I'm helping these people, and there's never a single moment in class where you can sit back and just say, okay, let them do the exercises, because it's constantly interactive. I'm constantly helping people, talking to people, challenging people, asking difficult questions, which is fun because it's so much fun to teach this class. But that's one thing. It's exhausting, but that's okay. I think the most difficult thing for me is to see that we're teaching difficult stuff. It's not, okay, I'm gonna spoon feed you some procedure and then you copy paste my template, fill in the things you see, and then there's the result. People love that. Like risk analysis is possible failure times the chance of failure. So it's impact, the chance of failure. That's an oversimplified model, but people like that because it's easy. It's systematic. It's a method. It's easy. Like, okay, fill in 2 variables and boom, there is it. And in RST, the first time Michael came to Rabobank, I said to him afterwards, okay, my estimation is that 50% of the audience loves it, 25% is like,
don't care.
I don't really sure if this is going to help me, but we'll see. And 25% of the people said, I haven't got a clue what these people were talking about. And for me, it is okay, because you can't serve a group of 20 people and make them all go home happy, because they all come from different backgrounds, they have different learning goals, and sometimes I see people come in with learning goals that I was like, seriously, have you read the abstract we made about this training? You're not gonna get what you're asking for. But so not being able to serve those people makes me sometimes sad, because you want everybody to come home happy and like, oh yeah, woohoo! But it's impossible to serve 20 individuals in class with their exact learning goals without doing deep intakes before, and we don't do that. I wish we would, so that we could steer people to the right course. Some people just want spoon feed ISTQB stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's okay, but I'm not doing that. I'm not helping you with in that way. So don't come to RST classes, because you might be in for a surprise.
And you know the story also behind the ISTQB. So you have an informed opinion.
Yeah.
It's not just. By the way, with the risk, you had a class yesterday.
Yes.
And how RST is teaching it's very delicate. And I remember also, James, we read scientific papers regarding risk, and we arrive at the thing like risk as feelings, how anxiety affects how we assess the situation, because that kind of probability, also James found out, and investigated all these researches that, hey, it doesn't work, and he found a research paper that, no, with testing, you can't go and put those probabilities. How do you deal with that?
That's an interesting thing, because I have a confession to make. I haven't read all the papers James did, because James is the kind of person that would happily be studying 7,000 pages of scientific stuff. That's not me. I'm more the kind of person like, okay, so James, what did you find? Tell me, and I'll learn from him. I've read quite a few of them, but not everything, because hey, I'm more of the practical person. I like to take what they tell me, try it, experience it in the real world in projects or helping other people, like, hey, let's try this, and then learn from that. And that's also, I think, the power. Some people say, like, yeah, but Michael and James haven't been in the real world for years. And
no, it's not the case.
I think it's, first of all, it's not true, because they work with a lot of people who do. Well, on the other hand, they also listen carefully to what Paul and I bring in.
We have Friday evenings, the calls, and what I like is that we complement. I can't go in 10 different directions. James, you do it with one thing, you are doing with other things, and it's helpful. This is how.
But that's what I like about the RST group is that we teach stuff that is, first of all, deeply researched. Second, it's been tested in different contexts, and we keep changing it. Because if you look at the training Michael gave at Rabobank, the exercises that were in that class, I think maybe 1 or 2 are still there, and the rest of them completely changed. So the class keeps changing, and for one thing, that's hard, because you have to keep updating yourself and have to because each class is an experiment, because we do new stuff every time. And if you look at the more standard courses, I think ISTQB hasn't changed very much in the last, 10 years, but the whole world is changing, so we need to up our game. And that sometimes bothers me.
And this continuous refinement of the thing. Sometimes people say, "Hey, just semantic is just words." I just recently read a book where actually how the brain we have it as humans is because of the words. But how try to adapt it, and this is deep. I mean, and I saw some brain scans of how we think about certain things, how we articulate when we listen, and how different parts of the brain are highlighted and so on. And I say, you can't say it's just semantics, and we can't, for example, the medicines, it's not just the heart. They have 100 parts of the heart of what is happening. That's why we respect those surgeons. I mean, we should have it in the testing and programming. It's not just, we test something. It doesn't matter that it's automation or manual or whatever.
Well, that was one of the things that struck me when I started studying RST. And when I stepped into this world, James and Michael came up with Harry Collins, and it struck me like, wow, they're actually talking to experts on how people think, how people behave, instead of it's not about the technical part. It's important, but it's all about humans.
It's about wave physicists. How they did the science behind this. That is top notch. It's top of the top, and how it's happening, and how even the social dimension. It's there when they took the decision that they did. They made that discovery. It's insane what is.
And we in our community we read books from Daniel Kahneman, Harry Collins, Malcolm Gladwell. All kinds of scientists or popular scientists. I'm okay with that. But Harry Collins and Daniel Kahneman are real scientists, looking at how people behave and how we can use their work in testing, instead of just trying to, just fully understanding how people think, how people work, how people interact with technology, instead of just, hey, let's model it a little bit and then get a design technique, create test cases, and execute testing. And it's like, seriously? You don't study how people think, how people work, how people interact.
And you speak about validated science there. For example, I was speaking with James, another name to add that it's Gary Klein. He made a lot of research regarding how decisions are made. And when we test with exploratory and the things that we do not have a lot of options, we go with the next satisfying one. It's what I like is that RST, in a way, it's also a message, go cross the corridors to the other colleagues and disciplines. What we do, they are informed things with homework done. Today, a colleague of ours said about losing jobs. And now I'm asking you this question in the context of RST. Sometimes it's dangerous. We speak about risk in a different way, about decisions, how we make the strategy, how we articulate the test reports, how we know when there is a problem, and surprise, we use Oracle and heuristics, and we might lose jobs because of that.
Yeah, it bothers me, and let me tell you why. There are three important parts in this. First, she asked this question like, okay, but if you let me do what you tell me to, like modeling stuff, then my manager will say, hey, we did that's analysis, so we got to make you a business analyst, an analyst. And I was like, seriously? So there are managers in this world telling me how to do or us, or IT people or teams, how to do their jobs. That bothers me. Because, first of all, he probably doesn't even know what testing really is. So they were like defining silos. Testers need to do blah, blah. Write test plans, create test cases, execute test cases. Analysis is for business analyst. That's not true. It's not siloed. It's teams building software, testing software, understanding customers. And if I were manager, I would look at the results. I don't care what you do.
Yeah.
So if you're a tester and you think that it's good to help a programmer debug, feel free. Do it. If that makes the team better, do it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, what bothers me is that people are actually afraid to lose their job because they somehow do not dare, and I understand, but do not dare to stand up. One of the things that we teach in RST is to speak up.
Yeah.
So, hey, if I don't like what you're saying, I'm going to tell you. In a respectful way, of course. I'm not going to dismiss you. I'm not going to yell at you. But it's like, hey, why are you thinking that?
And it's important to say that in RST we have to accept the person. Some persons might be assertive, but they have other good qualities.
Yes.
It's not always that it's just fluffy bunnies. Here it's about losing jobs. Here it's about people getting suicide. Here it's about lawsuits.
Yeah.
I mean, this is deep. It's skin in the game. We cannot be assertive certain time.
No.
We have, if it's the case, we have to do it.
Yeah, so the third thing, what bothers me in her question is that testing and development are really close, but to fully understand the product from a testing perspective, and I'm a different person. I love mind maps. I know people who hate mind maps, but they help me think. They help me structure my thoughts, and I like to have my own model, and that's why I create product coverage outlines. And they might be helpful to a team, but most of the times, the people I work with said that's a bit of redundancy. And I said, okay, but let me do my thing. And it doesn't take a lot of time. So creating a model, let's say that I create a product coverage outline and it takes me like half an hour. What's a half an hour in a full sprint? So let me do my thing and don't judge me on the activities I do. Judge me on the results I bring. So if I, for instance, start rewriting the requirements because that's necessary, is that a sin? Why should I lose my job? So the manager should, if I were coaching this manager, I would say, relax, dude, step back. Don't look at the individual activities they do. Just look at the output the team brings. And it's not the output as in documents and stuff. No, in results.
Yeah.
How much value are they actually delivering? So it's more of, look at the outcome. Are they doing their stuff? Okay, cool. Then don't worry. Don't worry. And it's like soccer. We have a national coach, and everybody is having comments on how he does his job. But we're still winning, right? We're going to the World Championship. The last 3-4 games we won or we drew, so we're doing great. Stop commenting on how he's doing his job.
Yeah.
Just look at the results. If the results are good, Awesome. If the results are bad, maybe you might challenge him a little bit. But in the Netherlands, we have 17 million national coaches. Everybody is trying to has an opinion, and it's okay. But back to the girl who asked the question, I'm seriously getting angry about not her question again.
Of the situation.
Of people who interfere, who put pressure on people to say, no, you're a tester and your job is to do blah, 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 blah. No, I'm not a tester. I'm a software engineer. And yes, I have a role testing often, but sometimes I'm not a developer, although I can write code and I can fix bugs, simple things. And sometimes that's the best thing I can do to help the team. Then I'll do it. And there's nobody in the team saying, no, you're a tester. Go create test cases. Because I talk to my team and say, hey, how can we help each other to deliver the best value possible? And there's no manager who's going to tell me how to do my job. I learned also from James and Michael how to speak up and say, hey, let me get something clear. I have 25 years of testing experience. I'm a teacher. I'm an international keynote speaker. I'm a coach. I know my thing. Don't tell me how to do my job. And if you do, things might get nasty because I won't accept that if you tell me how to do my job. Tell me what you want from the team. So don't tell me to create test cases. Tell me that we have to find problems or we have to validate stuff, or so give me a mission for my testing. Give me a list of stuff, information. What kind of information do you want from me? I'll deliver that, and I'll just do my thing. And I think that is how it should work. But in the real world, to quote Rob, it's people just think that by micromanaging people and telling them how to do their job, they deliver more value, and they don't. They just scare people, and people who are scared are never good. Will never be good at their job because they're like walking on eggs. Like, I have to satisfy my manager instead of results. So they're covering their ass instead of covering the product. And I think that results in that software.
And in RST, there is one of a premise. I mean, we don't fool around with our professional integrity.
Exactly.
This is very, very important. Yeah. And what struck me a little bit on this is that this kind of managers, which probably are good people, they don't realize that if they take that identity from the person, they will no longer be what they can be.
Yep. Sad, but true.
Yeah. I observed something for testers who are in this context driven from RST or the JIT or black box. I saw that they are able also to they can handle complexity and uncertainty, and they can switch to other roles.
Yep.
But from the other, like factory school, like as you said, I saw that they can't cope with that.
Well, and there's a reason for it. And I've observed and I've worked with many people, and one of the very valuable things Michael taught me was I was a manager at Rabobank, and I was struggling to understand the people I worked with. So what Michael taught me, he said, just observe them. Go sit next to them and ask questions like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? How does this help you? What is your mission? Not to steer them, but to try to understand what people are doing. And at one point, James was in my car and we were driving to Rabobank. He was speaking at Rabobank in the evening for a group of testers, and he said, I'm going to do this thing with you. So you're going to test a thing that I'm going to show you, and you're going to explain what you do and why you do it. And I was trained to do that because I observed these people, like Michael told me, and that became test opsy. So the first test opsy, I think James did with me, and we didn't have a name for that back then. We just did it, and context-driven people, RST people, JIT people, people who take the black box testing courses, are trained to understand what they're actually doing. So it's not like here, this is boundary value analysis. So you determine the boundaries, you 1, 2, 3 values, and you're done. No, it's what is the problem? How are we trying to solve this? And in RST, we teach people the skills to solve problems. We help them think clear.
And this it's another important, I think, Yoyos and James and Michael and Paul, in the service. It's not like that policeman and to be tough. It's in the service of the people, programmers, POs.
But the context-driven people are more focused on skills and on learning those skills and seeing those skills. That's why I think test opsies are so valuable in understanding what you actually are doing when you're exploring, to talk about it. Because in the risk class I did yesterday, there were some people trying to tell, in the debriefs of the exercise, trying to tell me what they did, and they struggle with that. And it's okay, I've been there. In 2011, when I first started working with Michael, I sucked at it. And now I think I'm pretty good. Michael and James did it way more, so they're even better. But being able to express what you're thinking, why you're doing stuff, and what you're actually doing, makes it so much more valuable. So it helps other people to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. But it also making them able to help you better. So I'm doing this, and this, and then people say, wait a second, if you're doing that, you might want to do this thing as well. And I was working in one of the test labs with a German developer, and I was explaining why I was doing it, because he said, can I learn from you? I said, sure. And then he started giving me tips, like from a technical perspective. Hey, this software is built like this and this. Maybe you should try this and this. And I was like, wow. And if I was not able to explain exactly what I was doing, like, I'm clicking here, I'm not sure why, but let's see what happens, then he wouldn't be able to give me those tips. And it's so valuable. So looking at what we're trying to achieve is not to make you a circus dog to do tricks, like we snap our fingers and then you jump, or you jump through a hoop. That's not what we want. We want you to be able to solve complex problems, to be okay with uncertainty. It's actually very good to be like, I'm not sure, to look at your inner feelings. There's this slide in RST where it says, if you are frustrated, that might be a sign of, and so look at how you actually feel. If you're feeling scared, then you might want to look into security stuff, because hey, there might be something wrong with security. So it's a very different approach, more human, more focused on skills.
When you say skills, what do you have in? Can you give me some examples?
Rob talked about it, modeling. I think modeling is so important because it's a complex world. It's ambiguous. Requirements do not really help you to fully understand the product. That's why we model stuff. So Rob showed a couple of examples. I like I said before, mind maps or other kinds of models. Like in when I'm talking to teams, I always ask in refinements, what are we actually talking about? Grab a marker, go to the whiteboard, draw what you're telling me. So visualize what you're, and it helps truly understanding what we do. So that's a very important skill. Talking about testing, people are not trained to tell what they do, but also report, not written reports, but just verbal, like, hey, I did this, this, and this. That's why I love the testing story. It's how's the product doing? How do you know this information, and how happy are you with this information? And it's 3 easy levels in the story, but but it's really hard to master. So train talking about testing, self-defense. So if this manager of this girl in the keynote is pushing you, know how to react back, how to give them feedback on hey, you're limiting my work, and we teach you to argument, to give you the right words to help you say what you need and what you want, asking for help. We push people in RSD very hard.
But with good intention, because
Absolutely.
in the end, we do not want those people to say, hey, you lose jobs or this is
exactly
for their benefit.
And we say to people like, hey, if you ask for help, we become this nice coaches, but if you do not ask for help, we'll push you. And in the real world, and we saw that, the girl who asked the question is being pushed by her manager in a corner she doesn't want to be in, and she doesn't know how to fight back, and that's sad. But we train people to speak up. So those are a couple of skills that critical thinking. It's hard to actually really teach that, but we feed people with complex problems and then let them struggle, and then later on say, hey, you missed this and this, or you might want to try this. Help people solve complex problems. So, and none of them are typical testing skills. They're just basic life skills that happen to be very useful in IT.
Where people can find out more about your work, classes?
Well, the main source for RST is the website rapid/software/testing.com. Just Google it, rapid software testing. You'll find it. That's and mostly those are the online classes for James and Michael. My work, just go to my website, huibschoots.nl. You can find a link to my blog. You can find a link to my storytelling work. I'm not an active writer on my blog anymore. I just lost interest in doing that because I have other ways of. I used to write a blog to help fully understand what I was only what I was talking about, and now I just go to conferences, meet people online, talk to people, but so there, and yeah, I'm a regular at some conferences. So and if not, what I learned from Michael is everything I do comes with lifetime technical support. I've been a Skype coach, so people could just send me an email like, "Hey, can you coach me?" And sure, let's do some sessions. So if you want to talk to me, find me on LinkedIn and we'll talk. Because I'm happy to help anybody who is willing to put some effort in. I'm not going to tell you how to do stuff. I hope this interview was clear about that. I'll challenge you. I will help you think stuff through. But I'm happy to work with anybody who's willing to put time in. So.